Now, from your local weather leader, this is WCIA 3's 2021 Winter Weather Outlook with Chief Meteorologist Kevin Lighty and the WCIA 3 Weather Team.
Hello and welcome to our Winter Weather Outlook. I'm Chief Meteorologist Kevin Lighty along with meteorologist Jack Griffin, Amelia Henderson, and Jacob Dickey.
In the next 30 minutes, you'll learn why some roads get plowed first and the decisions that are made behind that.
Also, if your power goes out at home, what are some safety tips to get you through those hours or potentially even those days without power?
And have you ever noticed how quiet it is after a snowfall? I'll tell you why.
And of course, our Winter Weather Outlook is coming up. How much snow will we have? How cold is it going to be? I've got that forecast coming up. But first, wow, snowplow drivers, they work hard throughout the winter season to plow those roads. But it's not just as simple as going out and sending the crews out there. There's a method behind that madness. Meteorologist Jack Griffin explains more.
What may look like a scramble to clear off as many roads as possible is actually a well-choreographed process of sending out the right number of trucks with the right equipment at the right time with the goal of being proactive to the event.
Some of the factors we look at are temperatures, not only air temperature, but more importantly road temperature, timing of the event, precipitation amount and type.
With the goal of being as proactive as possible, a salt brine may be used to pre-treat the road while the temperature is still relatively warm before switching to a calcium chloride solution when the temperatures are even colder.
If you get that on there prior, then it prevents the bond to the pavement. So when your plows come in, it's going to peel right up.
All roads will eventually be cleared, but our main routes, highways, and interstates will be tackled first in the interest of public safety.
We're going to get those down to bare pavement before we move on to secondary routes. The idea behind that is that everybody should be within a certain distance of a main route so you get to school, get to work, get to a hospital.
Within the city of Champaign, you have Champaign City Crews, Township Crews, and IDOT. All these crews have their own jurisdiction and routes, so it may be confusing wondering where they are all going.
You can see a truck, it might not make sense to the average person where why didn't you just keep going, but that's probably because it's not our road to be taken care of.
It may not always make sense, the routes they take, but what does make sense is safety.
Everybody just help each other out, be cautious. If you don't have to travel when it's bad, please don't. That allows us more time and more freedom to get those roads in a condition that it is safe for the public to travel.
All right, thanks, Jack. Well, driving in winter weather is probably one of the top reasons why some people may not like this season very much. It can be scary, especially when involved in an accident or sometimes multiple.
I've had 2 major accidents with black ice.
Maggie Woodham hasn't had the best luck driving in winter weather.
Well, my first major accident was actually my freshman year of college, going back down to Eastern with my roommate. And I guess there was a crash ahead of us, and when we went to brake, it just spun my car around and I slammed into the back of a semi. But soon came a second crash that she would encounter on I-74 near Mahomet. Right on this bridge, I was leaving to years later, go to my grad classes, and it seemed like a normal day, and hit a patch of black ice on the bridge and totaled my SUV. Sometimes known as black ice, it isn't really the color black, but instead it's a very thin layer of ice that is practically transparent, which makes it very hard to spot and forms quickly on bridges. We drive over bridges like this all the time in the winter, but what is it about this little patch of road that makes this more dangerous during the winter time? Well, it has to do with what's not under the bridge that makes it such of an issue. That would be the lack of any kind of ground underneath it. Most roads lose heat evenly over time, but unlike normal roads that have solid ground below them to help insulate them and keep them warm, bridges have cold air that reach both above and below the bridge, which results in quicker heat loss, meaning ice will form here first. The number one thing to remember? Slow down. But if you do hit ice, remember these tips. Keep the steering wheel straight. Don't slam on the brakes. Instead, take your foot off of the accelerator to slow down and regain control. And of course, knowing ahead of time by staying weather aware. Oh, I am well prepared. I am always watching the weather, checking my weather app. Honestly, I don't try to drive out in a lot if I know it could be possible. Maggie came away with only minor injuries in both accidents, and her story should be an example of how quickly things can get out of control when driving in winter weather. Now, Jacob explains a little bit more about how differences in the type of snow can affect you.
4 to 8 inches in this broad blue area. Here's the 6 to 10 inch range. There is more to the snowfall forecast than how much snow is expected. It also matters what type of snow we expect. Very powdery and dry snow. Dry and powdery snow is better for sledding and can blow around easier, meaning when it's windy, it can fill back in over plowed roads. Heavy wet snow is great for snowmen and snow cream, but it is easier to plow since it sticks together well. That's why public works officials and road crews watch for this information closely.
Whenever it's forecast, we're out there, we're planning ahead.
Rick Baker is an operations supervisor for the city of Decatur, where he helps manage the city's fleet of plows and monitor road conditions.
We get forecasts in the morning and then a pavement forecast, condition of the pavements in the afternoons, and we go off that, and if something's forecast, we're out there, we're ready.
Rick and his crew are ready for snow no matter how much and what type is expected.
A heavy snow, that's going to be mainly a salting event. A dry powdery snow, depending on the temperature, a lot of it will blow off the roads. We're not having to plow it so much. The bad thing about that is once it's down, if it starts blowing around, it starts drifting. We're fighting drifting, which heavy wet snow, we don't fight that as much.
When we forecast a snowfall total, we'll not only share our forecast number, but we also share information about the type of snow to better help you plan for the storm. That's just another reason why we've been independently verified as Central Illinois' most accurate forecast for 9 years in a row. Get a great recipe for snow cream you can have ready for the whole family when a heavy wet snow is in the forecast on our website, WCIA.com.
All right, thanks, Jacob. Before we go to break, check out this interesting winter weather fact. The Earth is actually closest to the sun during the winter, not the spring. It's the tilt of the Earth is what causes us to be warmer or cooler during the year. More of our winter weather outlook is coming up after the break.
WCIA 3's 2021 Winter Weather Outlook continues now.
When it comes to ice, it takes way less ice than snow to cause impacts. One major impact ice can have is on the power infrastructure. Jacob Dickey shares how.
The spotlight on winter weather often focuses on snow, but the most dangerous and long-lasting impacts comes from another type of wintry precipitation. That's ice.
We have had several icing events over the last couple of years.
Power companies in the area do what they can to protect the electric grid from ice storms, but often they are at the mercy of Mother Nature.
We build to a certain spec and try to make sure we maintain that, but the ice itself can just cause so much extra devastation there again with the wind on top of that. So.
It is often the combination of the weight of the ice with the wind that can cause widespread damage.
Ice just creates so much more weight on our lines. When you take an extra 500 pounds and start letting it sway back and forth in the wind, it can cause some major problems.
Central Illinois is no stranger to ice storms and the devastating impacts. This past winter was just one of several in recent memory that brought significant ice to parts of our area.
Back in January last year, that was one of those ice storms. It was the first, it came through and with a half-inch of ice, and it all just sat there and didn't sway, and we had a few minor outages, but then once the wind picked up, we started having major outages after that.
It doesn't take much ice to damage the power infrastructure, especially when it accumulates fast. The weight of just 1/10 of an inch of ice on a single power line can be over 100 pounds, the weight of a large family dog. When 1/4 of an inch of ice sticks on power lines, it can weigh as much as an average male black bear. This is when significant damage begins to take place, especially if there's wind. A half-inch of ice can cause extreme damage to the power infrastructure, leaving some out of power for weeks. That's the equivalent weight of at least 62 gallons of milk per segment of power lines. 1 whole inch of ice is catastrophic to trees and power lines. It's the same as hanging a grand piano from each power line. The devastation from this can leave whole communities in the dark for weeks. For reference, the Valentine's Day ice storm in 1990 left between 1 and 2 inches across Champaign-Urbana, causing $25 million of damage in today's money. We've had several ice storms over the years here in Central Illinois. Learn more about some of them and see footage from the vault of the 1990 Valentine's Day ice storm that devastated Champaign-Urbana. You can find that on our website, WCIA.com.
Thanks, Jacob. Well, it's only a matter of time before that happens again. And Amelia Henderson sat down with one person who experienced this firsthand.
You may not remember any specifics from the Central Illinois ice storm of 1990, but for Linda Bickers, it's one winter she'll never forget.
We ended up without power for 10 days.
As a result of the power outage, Bickers and her family had to evacuate their home for over half a month.
We were asleep. I heard a loud crash. A tree branch got broke down and it tore the service off of our house. I could see flames out the upstairs window. So I called 911. The line was busy. Called the fire department. The line was busy. Called the police department. The line was busy. The only reason we have a house standing is it was brick.
Years later, Bickers and her family were still affected by the damage from that ice storm.
10 years later, we tried to sell our home. We were forced to rewire the entire house, including the breaker box and the new wiring that had been redone 10 years prior to that, because we had to bring everything all up to code.
Bickers made sure this was something that would never happen again, and there are ways you can prepare for a winter event like this too.
Mother Nature is gonna give us the worst at times. Just try to be sure you have food, water, more blankets and coats, like you said, in case you don't have someplace to go right away.
Thanks, Amelia. Waiting 10 minutes in the morning to get into a warm car feels great for us, right? But does it help with the longevity of the car? Jack Gerfen puts to rest an old myth.
No one likes to get into an ice-cold car. That's why remote start has become quite common. Many cars nowadays can even start through an app too, making it very easy to warm up a car. But how long do you have to wait for a cold car to be warmed up in order to safely drive it?
All of our modern cars nowadays use electronic fuel. That means we don't have to wait multiple minutes for our car to be warmed up. We pretty much can just start the car, wait about 30 seconds or so, and then that's enough time for the car to be safely warmed up for us to then be able to drive.
Modern engines are designed to quickly get to a warm operating temperature, even if the outside temperature is cold and it feels cold inside your car. And even though the EPA states that cars are 12% less efficient in very cold temperatures, idling your car for multiple minutes a day just wastes fuel, money, and time. A car that just sits gets 0 miles per gallon. That's why easing into your drive after only a short amount of idling is best.
Really, the most effective way to warm your car up is to just drive it.
All right, thanks a lot, Jack. Warming up the car for just 10 minutes a day increases fuel consumption by around 15%. Now, Amelia tells us how we can save time this upcoming winter.
If you live in central Illinois, most of us know the feeling of sitting inside the cold vehicle waiting for your front windshield to defrost, or you might have been a few minutes late to work from scraping the ice away. But there's one tip that you can buy some time during freezing weather, so I went around to see how many people already know about it. Windshield wipers up or down? Up. In case of freezing weather, what do? Do you leave your windshield wipers up, or do you put them down?
They're down. Put them up.
Okay, in case of freezing weather, do you put your windshield wipers up, or do you leave them down?
You leave them up because you don't want them to stick when you turn them on? Is that right? Yeah.
In case of freezing weather, do you leave your windshield wipers up or do you put them down?
You put them up before it freezes, and you make sure that way you don't have that coagulation. Is that a good word?
Keep your windshield wipers up or put them down?
Up.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah.
In case of freezing weather,
Okay.
do you leave your windshield wipers up or do you put them down?
I keep them down because I usually forget, and that's also too because we're always racing in here to do the forecast. I just don't have time to put them up.
Now, regardless of what your answer was, in case of freezing weather, the right thing to do is to keep your windshield blades up to prevent it from freezing to the windshield and prevent it from overworking the motor.
All right, thanks a lot, Amelia. Hey, how about another fun weather fact before we go to break? More than 22 million tons of salt are used on U.S. roads each winter. That comes out to about 137 pounds of salt per person. The Winter Weather Outlook will return right after this.
WCIA 3's 2021 Winter Weather Outlook continues now.
Harvest season is a busy time of year for farmers, but as we transition into the winter season, farmers are focusing on their livestock. Amelia went to the farm to see how they keep them safe.
When it's freezing outside, you most likely layer up or find ways to keep yourself warm. But what about the animals that remain outdoors or in barns and have to endure the winter conditions?
So during the winter months, we're gonna feed them a little bit extra just to keep that energy up.
Along with keeping your animals well fed, a big tip is always keeping an eye on your local forecast.
We watch the forecast So if it gets below 20 degrees, then we bring them in. Sometimes we'll put straw down so that way they can be a little warmer.
So the biggest thing for sheep is to keep the wind out of the barn. So what we'll do is we'll put carpet over the doors and the windows, just enough so that they can walk under, but the wind will not get through. So, because sheep still need ventilation.
Now, one of the most important tips is making sure these animals have access to fresh water. Now, if you don't have a water heater, the next best thing is take a stick and make sure to break up the ice.
The most important thing to do in the winter is to keep that water from freezing. Some people will just kind of pick at the ice, but as you get into the later months, you're going to want a heater. Because it's going to thaw, it's going to freeze all the way through, and your animals won't have any water.
A few other things to keep in mind are making sure you have a heating lamp along with keeping your water hose from freezing.
The biggest thing for the lambs is to keep that heat lamp on them, and if it gets really cold or the lamb's really weak, we'll bring it to the basement.
All right, thanks a lot, Amelia. All right, sometimes fresh air is best, no matter how cold, windy, or snowy it is. Jack has some training tips for those who still need to brave the elements this winter.
The COVID-19 pandemic canceled the past 2 years of the Illinois Marathon in Champaign-Urbana, but come April, we'll be back to having thousands of runners pounding the pavement in search of their best times for up to 26.2 miles. With its normal date of the last weekend in April of 2022, runners will start to train very soon, if not already. This means having training runs throughout the entirety of the winter.
But really the whole challenge of running outside is just taking the first step to get outside. Once you're outside, you're good.
Holding yourself accountable with your training can be hard when it's cold, but training with a partner really helps. The treadmill is always an option to avoid the cold, but there are many benefits to running outside, even in the snow with a slower pace.
You feel so much better when you get done doing that and your achievement goals, and it's unbelievable. It's a running high, basically.
Dressing for the conditions will be the most important thing when it comes to running outside. You want to pay extra attention to the extremities. That means wearing gloves, making sure your feet stay dry, wearing a nice hat or a headband, and to layer up. You can get tracks or ice joggers to get better traction when things get slick, but really it's the temperatures and the wind that will be the biggest obstacle.
You should always dress like it's 10 degrees warmer because your body heat will take care of the rest. You know, you may feel a little chill when you first start running, but it'll subside pretty quick.
Before and after your runs, drink more water than usual due to the drier air in the wintertime. And lastly, Lindemann offers the most helpful hint when running outside.
Always run into the wind the first part of your run and run with it back, because then you don't get because you work up that sweat, you don't get the chill. And honestly, the tailwind helps a lot. There's a lot more fun coming back.
All right, thanks, Jack. Of course, good luck to all the runners out there coming up here this spring. All right, every year we often get several people asking a question about sound in snow, and Jacob has more about that coming up.
Have you ever noticed how quiet it is when there's snow outside? As it turns out, there's a scientific reason why there's silence in the snow. The next time there's snow falling outside your house, just like this, you can step outside and hear how quiet it is. On a normal day, if the neighbor's kid was playing his trombone outside, you'd probably hear it loud and clear. But if they played when it was snowing outside, it would be a different story. That's because the snow would absorb some of the sound energy, meaning the sound would be much quieter than on a summer day. Combined with the power of billions of snowflakes in a winter storm, there's a lot of sound energy lost in the snow. Just a few inches of snow can help absorb as much as 60% of the sound in the air. That's a lot of quiet. Learn more about the science of silence in a snowstorm and other cool winter storm facts on our website, WCIA.com.
All right, before we head to break, check out this winter weather fact, okay? It snowed in all 50 states, yeah, even Hawaii. Of course, this occurs mostly in the higher elevations, but the state that gets the most snow annually, that's Vermont with 90 inches a year. So what will we have here this winter? I've got my winter weather forecast coming up after the break. Welcome back to the show. It's time for that winter forecast. They come in all different shapes and sizes. You can get one from the Old Farmer's Almanac. They're saying cold and dry, or the Farmer's Almanac. They've got icy and flaky. I don't know what that means. The National Weather Service and NOAA, they're saying above average with temperatures, and they're saying above average with precipitation. Now, a lot of this hinges on whether or not we're in a La Nina or what's called an El Nino pattern. And that has to do with what's happening with the temperatures on the equatorial Pacific. Just so happens, We're cooler than normal this year, a La Nina pattern. And this is the typical pattern you see here with the jet stream taking a dip here. You get some wetter conditions along the Great Lakes a lot of times. And the reason we know we are in La Nina, we look at the temperatures right here. Okay, colder, that's North America, South America, equator right there. And with those temperatures being as cold as they are, we know La Nina is coming our way. Just like what we had last year. This graph goes back to 2009 and it shows the blue, La Nina patterns, the red, El Nino, when you've got those temperatures above or below normal there. And so you can see, we can go back and look at other years and then compare them. So what we're doing is looking at the last 5 La Nina winters that were a weak or moderate pattern, and we take a look at the snowfall. 19, maybe as much as 26 inches like we had in 1995 and 96. Also, I like solar activity here. Are we in a solar minimum or a maximum? How much solar activity is really out there? Well, we hit that peak in July of 2025. We just had the minimum back here in about 2019, 2020. And so we're on this rise here. And with that, sometimes that can mean a little bit above normal with the temperatures there, but not by much. Also, snowpack to our north does a lot. How much snow up here in Siberia and Canada can play a role into what's going to be happening down here in our neck of the woods. So, what are we looking at with temperatures? We're going to go with near average. I think a very typical winter-like temperature profile will be seen here across parts of central Illinois. On average, 23 inches of snowfall in Champaign. This year, let's go ahead and say just a little bit above normal. We haven't really had anything yet so far, but I think that may change here in the coming months. We'll put you in that 23 to 26 inch range. And just for fun, how about a white Christmas? What are the chances? All right, we're going to give you about a 33% chance, a 1 in 3 chance to get some of that on Christmas morning. So here is your recap. We're in a La Nina pattern. We're going to see some increased solar activity here. Snowpack is higher to our north than normal, so that can play a role into getting some colder air down in here. But overall, average temperatures coming our way. With that snowfall between about 23 and 26 inches, and we'll give you a 33% chance that we might have a white Christmas this year. Well, that's going to do it for our show tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
But if you want to see these stories again, or of course view the entire show, you can visit our website at WCIA.com.
And if you have a smartphone, download the WCIA3 weather app. It's free.
And you can follow all of us on Facebook and on Twitter.
All right, don't forget to have a little fun this winter season. Of course, stay safe. And for all of us here at WCIA3, we hope you have a great night